mechanism for people to call or to notify the company of misbehavior. And finally, there's and it's not the only thing, but there's also the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which Alan succinctly described. That specifically provides that that an effective compliance program has to include a method for people to report misdoing on a confidential basis and without fear of retaliation. And I think another reason why this is so important is we can't address the wrongdoing unless we know what's going on. And people won't tell you unless they're sure that they're not going to lose their jobs. But once they let us know, we have to be very careful in actually conducting an effective investigation. That's some of what Art is going to talk about. But there are companies that have been fined millions of dollars for failing to investigate claims. One of the things we do is that when a helpline call comes in, we make sure that an investigation occurs. And we try to do it as effectively as possible. But you know, when a company fails to conduct an investigation or conducts an ineffective investigation, you can pay a penalty for that. So we have a helpline to ensure that our ethics and compliance program actually works. It's a check on the program. It's a way for us to ensure that what we're doing is what we need to do. So employees have a duty, and particularly here in the United States. There are some places where we can't say that they have a duty, but basically employees have a duty to report illegal activities and unethical conduct to the company. And part of our promise to them for reporting these things to us is that we will not engage in retaliatory action and that we will investigate their claims. So, you know, you have a complaint, you have a concern. Why do people actually pick up that phone and call us? Sometimes people wait until they are at their wit's end and then they pick up the phone. Other times people are upset about something that's going on with their manager, with their business, and then they call us. But one of the main reasons that people want to call us, and this is because many of our calls are actually HR related, so out of the 850 calls you get from the United States, I would say probably about 85% of them are really just HR related calls. Employees who are out in the field, say you're out in Texarkana or you're out in Buena Vista, California, they want corporate to know what's going on at their facilities because they think it's important that the corporation know, the headquarters know that they have a manager that's not treating them well, that's not treating them with respect and dignity. And so the corporate office oversees all of those investigations, and we always get back to the person who made the complaint, and we tell them the results of our investigation and what we've done to address their situation. Now, I'll tell you, not all of the calls we get are substantiated. Who can tell me what's the percentage of substantiated calls? 50%? Anyone else?
70%.
Anyone else? 25? You are the closest one, therefore you get a prize. Throw it? Oh, I'm not going to throw it. I'm going to very politely walk over here and very safely put it on the desk. So yeah, about 30% of our calls are substantiated. So that means the majority of calls we get are not substantiated. So, but that doesn't mean that we don't investigate the claims because we don't know which ones are going to be substantiated and which ones are not. And We also want people to believe that if they make a complaint, we will look into it and we will address it. So we don't just say, oh, gosh, we're hearing from this guy again, complaining about his manager. We investigate every single time he raises a complaint, because there's going to be that one day where he's going to have a problem, or his coworker is going to have a problem, and maybe it's a safety-related issue and it's something that the company needs to know or address, and they will say, okay, the company always listens to us when we call this number, so we'll call it now when we have this important issue that needs to be addressed. And, International Paper is a big company, and we operate in many locations 24 hours a day. And that means that there's not always somebody there to to talk about a potential issue. And that's another reason why we get calls in the middle of the night from people who are working, and they don't have anyone who's at the management or HR who they feel they can raise an issue with. So we have people raising all kinds of issues. Like as I said, HR type issues are the most predominant, but we do get complaints that have led us to uncover major fraud or misuse of company assets. We get information that lets us know that there's a safety issue, and we have addressed safety issues based on helpline calls. Sometimes we learn of conflicts of interest. And then, of course, there's serious issues, audit and accounting issues, fraud, that kind of thing. And we have gotten those kind of issues from the helpline. So what we tell our employees is that even if you're not sure whether your complaint is when in doubt, you should just raise your concern. So if you have a concern, you're not entirely certain, just raise the concern, and we'll let you know whether it's something that we need to deal with, or if it's something that's not that you may not understand what's going on.
Nicole, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Since I'm the boss. So sometimes you might get a call, and maybe the manager hears about that call. What happens to that employee that makes that call?
Well, when we're saying that we don't retaliate, that means we have to take action to make sure that we don't retaliate. And so when a person makes a call, a lot of times they're anonymous, but other times we can figure out who the person is, or they give us their name. And so we don't immediately tell the manager, oh, Johnny over there made a complaint about you. We do some investigation. But then when it comes time to talk to the managers are always told and warned that they are warned that if they engage in any retaliatory conduct, that would be grounds for discipline. And we explain to them what would be retaliatory. So moving someone from first shift to third shift, or moving their office, or putting them in a cold place, or just firing them, scrutinizing their work more than usual. Anything like that, we tell managers that they can't do it. And so and then after we've completed an investigation, what we often do is we go back to the person and we say, how are things going? Has anything happened? So that if something retaliatory does happen, we're aware of it and we can deal with it and address it before it becomes a really serious issue.
And somebody over this side earlier talked about maybe making a call to a helpline. I'm not sure which person it was, but one of the questions was, do you necessarily always get back an answer? So if an investigation is done and wrongdoing is found by the person that reported it, do you actually call back the person who called and said, congratulations, you were right, we've now terminated this employee? What do you do?
Well, that brings up a number of things. Sometimes we always respond to the person, but sometimes what we'll say is something like we've received your concern, we investigated, and taken appropriate action. In some cases, we really can't say exactly what we did because we don't talk about other people's personnel issues with their coworkers. So if we do decide to take disciplinary action, we don't necessarily tell other people, but, sometimes it becomes apparent when, the manager's gone, or or is demoted or moved, so they know that something's happened. Other times, we do give a little bit more information, particularly in harassment cases. We'll be more give out more information about what we've done exactly. But we do try to be as transparent as possible. And like I said, we have a lot of HR-related calls, and so they need to understand what the policies are and what the rules are. And so when they say that, Abigail doesn't only works from 9 to 12, that's not fair. Well, Abigail's on FMLA leave, or has intermittent FMLA leave, so she has a right to do that. We wouldn't tell the employee that, she's on leave, but, or she has FMLA, but what we would say is that we've looked into the situation, and Abigail, there's no issue with the time that Abigail's taking off. So what we try to do is make sure that people understand that that we take everything seriously. Now, we will have people who will learn about something and they'll say, okay, this looks like it might be something important, but let me look into it. Let me see if I can find out what I can find out. Let me set up a camera in my office to see if someone is, So in other words, we have our Nancy Drews and our, Sherlock Holmes. I'm trying to think of a current detective that everyone know here, but we have people like that who decide that they're going to look into it themselves. The best thing for people to do is to let us know, and we'll look into it because we have the investigation expertise, and we can find out when there's something wrong. And besides that, no one that never works. It just never does. The other thing I would say to you is that we get a lot of complaints, as I said, that are not substantiated. And a lot of times the reason they're not substantiated is that when you're an employee, you don't have full information. You may think that you do, but you don't have full information. So you may see something happening, and you may think you know what's going on, but you don't know everything. So a lot of our calls are from people who are complaining about, someone getting vacation time when they shouldn't have, and they just don't have the full story. But say somebody comes to us and they tell us that they believe that John Evans is stealing from the company. They've seen him walking out of the company with reams of paper every day. So say they make that complaint, and we investigate, and we determine that he was allowed to because we told him to. We told him to take it to the local school. Should that person get into trouble for making a complaint that's not substantiated or that's wrong? And that's right. You're not going to be penalized if the allegations you make turn out to be completely wrong, unless you do it in bad faith. So if we can see clear evidence that you simply made that complaint to try to get somebody in trouble, and there's no good faith basis for you to have made the complaint, then we'll have some issues with you. But like I said, a lot of the complaints are not substantiated because people don't have full information and don't know what's going on, and so you don't get in trouble for making a helpline complaint. And so the helpline is really one of the pillars of our ethics and compliance program. And you'll find helplines at almost every company that you go to. They're usually run by outside contractors, so that you're not calling into the company, you're calling someone who's outside the company, who takes the complaint and then forwards it to the company. The purpose of that is to make people feel comfortable. You don't want to pick up the phone to make a complaint and find out, oh, my manager picks up the phone. So you want to have someone from the outside picking up these calls, and that's what we have. And when we take 30 days or so to investigate the complaints, and then we post an answer in the helpline report. And when the person calls back in, then they get their answer. And so that's how we maintain good employee relations, because employees always know that they have a way to complain about something, where they don't have to go to their manager or their plant manager or HR. They can come to the corporate office. And also, we can be sure that people have a way of reporting fraud and other serious misconduct to us. And so that's the purpose of the helpline. And, but having the helpline is not enough. We have an army of investigators, most of them in HR, who investigate these complaints. And so our goal is to have people who are good investigators and who are persistent and who can pursue the real problems. Like, for example, we had a case recently where a manager looked at an expense report and saw that his employee had bought some trading cards, and so he told HR about it, and then HR forwarded to the Ethics and Compliance Office, and then when we investigated, we found that the guy had actually taken a significant amount of money from the company using his corporate card. So, because people make complaints and they follow up, because our corporate security people decided to go back and look at 5-6 years worth of information, that's how we were able to figure out the enormity of this crime. So,
So we have our security person here, I think, that's going to be able to tell us a little bit about
we
investigating.
do.
I do have one more question, Nicole. Do we ever get any helplines that say nice things about the company? You'll have to think about that. Here, come back up. Think a little bit about that while we start.
No,
We're going to give you all the 800 number. You can start
you.
calling and saying nice things.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Art.
Yeah. Let me, beautiful, beautiful. And I'm not talking about my picture, I'm talking about her. Okay? Even though that's very heavily photoshopped, as you can see. More hair,
Nice teeth.
a nice smile, right?
Yep.
But anyway, I had to do something. I'm not an attorney. I am just a former FBI agent who frankly got lucky and landed at this company. This is a fantastic company. I will be talking about some case examples that I want you to think about ethics, what you would do, and they're short and sweet. I know I'm the last speaker. It's Friday. I got it. I got to catch a plane, by the way, so believe me, nobody wants to get out of here sooner than me. But anyway, so I've been with the
Thanks for
company
that,
for
Art.
I've been with the company for 5 whole weeks. No, that is right. 5 weeks, 5-6 weeks. Yeah.
And I'm going to tell, I'm going to tell the secret. So Art, his family hasn't relocated from Dallas yet,
That's right.
and he has a flight to catch at 6
6.
o'clock.
Yep.
So he's going to speak for about 30 minutes. We're going to ask about an hour's worth of questions. Yeah.
I want to
And leave a little bit early and
So,
answer.
so to continue on here before my boss interrupts me again, I did get lucky. I spent 21 years, as I said, with the Bureau. I did work all 5 of their investigative programs, from violent crimes, cybersecurity, counterterrorism, counterintelligence. And frankly, to me, it was a great job. I did get an opportunity to transition into the private sector, so I went to work at 20th Century Fox. Very different environment from the government to the entertainment industry, right? Worried about Angelina Jolie getting, where she needs to go on time. And they did ask me to do some stand-in for Brad Pitt, but I said, I don't want that kind of notoriety, so I kind of passed on that. Did you see this gentleman with this tie? This is fantastic. Stand up and show me your tie. I wish I had the guts to wear this to school. Look at this guy. Fantastic, right? Anyway, so then I started, I went to work at another little company, and that went well, and then I started my own company. And then, frankly, I started talking to that young lady back there, Casey. Stand up, Casey. She's my recruiter right there. So she called me, and she said, the first words out of her mouth was, I'm with International Paper, and I, of course, knew International Paper. Who doesn't know International Paper, right? But she gave me a little bit of background and said, we're looking for someone to come over and head our security. Are you interested? But just the conversation that I had with Casey really convinced me that I needed to take a second look at this company, or really a first look, because I was looking around to do some other stuff, frankly. But when I got here and I met everybody and I interviewed with them, I got to tell you, some of the nicest people in the world work in this particular building. They really do, in this company. Got to tell you. Very wonderful. Except their PowerPoints don't seem to work. But, is there a problem here? Hang on a second. I'll do it. That's all right. I'm not an attorney, so I got to work for a living. Maybe I don't know what button to push, right? Tower 3. Okay. Can you get it to work?
Apparently not.
All right. So the next slide that you'll see, I'll give you a quick overview of what the investigation process looks like. Very high level. But one of the things that was mentioned today that's really important for you to realize is that before any of this, it doesn't matter what the complaint is that comes in. We're going to look at it. We're going to pay attention to it, and we're going to evaluate it. We are not just going to disregard it. Does that make sense? And you want us to do that, right? If you come to work here or if you do business with us, you want to make sure that we are people who pay attention to what people are saying, right, about the company, our ethics, our integrity, things like that. So I just want to assure you that that's one of the things Nicole said that makes a lot of sense. Why investigations matter? Well, Nicole covered that very succinctly. And she is, by the way, a Harvard lawyer. You guys know that? Harvard. But more importantly, got to tell them. Tell them about who you...
I went to school with the Obamas.
That's nothing, right? That's not a big deal? Is that not a big deal? That's a big deal to me. Anyway, so the benefits to the company, again, I'm being repetitive here, it's liability, right? We want to make sure that we as an organization are looking out for our workforce, right? That we have the best products out there, right? That the people that are working with us actually know that we have very high standards and ethics. Isn't that a place where you guys want to work? The examples I'm going to give you are actual examples of where I worked that you're going to look at and you're going to say, I don't believe those things happen. But you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. So what makes an effective investigation? The very first thing, we evaluate the complaint. We've got to look at it and have an understanding of what is being alleged, right? Who, what, where, when, how, that sort of stuff. Very basic stuff. The next thing is we partner with legal. We don't go off in a silo and work an investigation by ourselves, right? You see the movies, right? And you always have the cops talking to the district attorneys and things like that. It's the same thing in corporate America. We have to be joined at the hip, and we need to be able to communicate because we have to agree on the investigative goals of the investigation. Does that make sense? Right? And that's really the key. Once you know that, you develop the investigative strategy, right? Who's going to be interviewed? What evidence do we need? How are we going to collect that? Correct? Am I losing anybody? That makes sense, right? Yeah. Real simple stuff. And then we have another meeting. We update each other. We say, this is what we found out. Usually, as in the movies, the bad guy is interviewed at the end, right? Or the employee in trouble at the very end. Once you've gathered all the information, you sit down with them. You've already got a strategy in terms of what you think the disposition is going to be. And you have that discussion with the employee or whoever it is and find out what actually happened, their side of it. But you've already prepared. you've got your ducks in a row. Does that make sense? So it's important for us to be able to follow the entire investigative cycle and have that process that we can duplicate and use again and again and again. So we need to do it the same way for everything. Does that make sense? Okay. So I want to very quickly try this one more time. Okay. So this is you, right? You're going to work at a new company, but this has actually happened. Somebody is in accounting, right? There's a whole bunch of accounting majors here, right? So accounting person, okay, and my employer, and I won't talk about who, is driving to work back and forth. Same route. Is doing some of the payroll from vendors and notices an address, and she uses that all the time. So one day she looks up and she says, you know, this address belongs to one of my vendors, because she's paying them on a monthly basis for services. She continues 2 months later, she says, you know, that individual going in and out is a high-level executive at my company, but that's a vendor address, and I'm paying them. Does that make sense? What would you do? Anybody?
Let's have someone who has an answered question already.
Go ahead, sir.
Patrick Crowder.
You need a microphone, or I can hear you, but I don't know about everybody else.
I mean,
What did she do, and what would you do?
what would I do as an employee? I would, of course, consult HR. There may be guidelines to go about handling the situation. And of course, the mission purpose, I would probably remind the employee, but not so bluntly about the mission's goals and our values. So they may also come clean, give them a chance.
But you're a brand-new accountant so you would go to the executive. Oh, well, that's not what she did, but I don't know that I would recommend it, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. Anybody else, what would you do? Yeah, you work at this company, you're brand new out of college, right? You essentially have been there a couple of months, and again, you realize that these checks, this vendor, you see an executive that's going in and out to this residence where these checks are going to. Go ahead, sir.
I may not need a microphone.
There you go, you don't, I can hear you.
So what we have is a problem that could be a fraudulent issue. It could be taking some money where it shouldn't be taken. I would report to my supervisor, or I would report on the hotline, but somebody needs to be notified once that is seen. Doesn't matter if you're new or not. The ethical, the right thing to do is to report it. Then it can be investigated to see if there's a conflict of interest, if there's some reason that that person is getting paid as a vendor, or if they're taking money from the company.
Right, very good. So what transpired is this individual set up a phony vendor, okay? Someone that he was seeing, and they lived together, and that's where the money was going to. We did an investigation, $5 million over 2 years. Didn't happen to this company, by the way, just want you to know. Let me reiterate that, not this company. $5 million over 2 years, okay? So if she hadn't noticed that, we wouldn't have caught it. But let me talk about the investigation, because I think that's really another lesson learned, frankly, that I learned, even at my ripe old age of retiring from the FBI. So we do an investigation, we packages it up, it's absolutely great, and I would, I could tell you that my boss here would refer it to law enforcement for prosecution. No question about it, right? We take it up to the president, he looks at it, I'll get back to you. Okay. 2-3 weeks go by, I haven't heard anything. I've already geared up the FBI on this, major case, right? Then I get a call telling me, it's okay, don't worry about it. We're not going to refer to law enforcement. We have made the arrangements. This is a very high-level individual who is very valuable to the organization. Is there anything that you should do? No. Do you need a microphone, or can they hear you?
I probably don't.
Okay.
So say the CEO is the highest person in the company, and they say it's okay, it's fine. Do you not report that person, or is that what the person says?
Well, let me tell you what I learned. What I learned is, in the corporate environment, right, our job, right, as investigators is to be able to look at all the facts, right, and be able to provide that information to management. And then management This is not the FBI. Management has a right to look at what the business ramifications are to the organization. Does that make sense? That's an important lesson to learn, in my mind. There's ethics. She did the right thing. I don't know if the head of the organization did the right thing, but we did the right thing. I can look at myself in the mirror and know that we did the right thing.
Okay, so you've been here five weeks. I think that if it was a public company, that there may be an obligation on your part to say that this public company is defrauding the shareholders, because that's who really owns the company. And so you may still have an obligation to investigate it and report it, even if the company itself wants to keep it secret, keep a lid on it, we took care of it, we swept it under the rug. But
So,
that would be a
go ahead.
concern for me.
yes, go.
So with that in mind, who is it that you would go to over the CEO of the company?
No, well, it wasn't the CEO, by the way. I just used it as an example, but But you're right. The fact is, what Sharon brings up is absolutely correct, right? My question is, who has that responsibility, right, to bring it forward? Does that make sense? So the accountant did the absolute right thing. I feel we did the absolute right thing. Does that make sense? But there was a report that was made by the organization, right? But the brand-new employee didn't need to know. Does that make sense? It's not within their scope to have to go back and say that. Of course, we had a discussion in HR in terms of making sure that there was no retaliation, that there was no this, there was no that. Does that make sense? Yeah, so we did that. Let me give you the next example, if I may. And I'm sorry about these pictures, but these are free, so this is the best thing that I could do. So this relates, I was, by the way, a state trooper in the state of Texas before I became an FBI agent. So I happen to have had the pleasure of training the first female state trooper in the state of Texas. So on day 2 that she's assigned to me, my boss calls me in, and this was many years ago, and says, she's not going to make it, is she? Right? So, in other words, giving me the message that they didn't want her on the highway patrol. Does that make sense? So what would you do? What does your ethics tell you to do? What's your integrity tell you to do? No, she's hired. No, she's hired. She graduated from the academy. She's assigned to me to train her on the road, right? But your boss is giving you this remark, right? She's not going to make it, is she? Somebody's got to have an idea.
So in my mind, I'm making sure that she's trained to perfection, so that if anything ever comes up against her, she is prepared for those things that might have her to have low scores in anything. So making sure that she's trained, but then I would also need to speak with somebody above him, because at this point, in my mind, I'm seeing that you're gonna set her up for failure, no matter what. So I would make a complaint.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Well, honestly, I guess if I was in that situation, I would probably try to
Do you want them?
see what. I mean, I feel like that's more of a statement of you're assuming, and I understand that you probably understand what he means, but I'm going to make sure he say it exactly. So
So you would ask him?
yeah, and so I
What do
have
you
a
mean?
clear understanding, and then is it wrong? Now I may be wrong. Let me learn something. But if you had that like tape recorder or something out.
No, hang on just a second. So I did your first thing. I didn't unconsensually record him. I did ask, what do you mean, right? And he said, in the Texas Highway Patrol, we've never had a woman, just, remember that. So to cut to the chase, frankly, I trained her. I did my job. I did the evaluations true to fact, exactly the way that she was performing, by the way. Did a fantastic job. At 6 months, they cut her loose on the road, and she is the first female Texas Ranger ever in the state of Texas, the first.
So do we have another question over here?
Go ahead.
I got the microphone now. I'm Patrick Crowder, University of Memphis, junior management major, concentration on human resources. I know a little bit of knowledge about that line of work.
Yep.
You have an internal affairs division as well, and that was a discriminatory problem when your boss told you that. So there's ways that needed to be maybe introduced as a discrimination issue by maybe going through internal affairs or your HR folks at the
Well,
time.
now, this is the state of Texas, state police, this is not LAPD. But I can tell you right now, I can tell you right now, when you start talking about in 1978,
Sure.
it's a different environment. But I will tell you that every week when he saw those reports, he was not a happy guy.
And I
Okay?
applaud you for
So-
what
so-
you did.
So I wound up working a lot of nights, but that's okay, because I can still look myself in the mirror and know that I did the right thing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Ethics to me. The next one, frankly, all of you may have different opinions about this, but this is, let's say, a president calls me up, I'm head of security at an organization, and he says to me, Art, this is on a Friday, Art, I need you to call me on Saturday at 7 o'clock and tell me we have an emergency on the lot. And I said, what emergency? This is Friday, right? And he says, well, I just kind of need to get out. I've got a date. Right? So I'm there 2 months in this new job, right? And that's what he asked me. He runs a business unit, right? What do you do? Well, these are personal ethical things that you have to think about, right? I'm not talking about Foreign Practices Corrupt Act. I'm talking about you yourself, what you can live with and what you have to do. What would you do? What do you say to him? Anybody? No?
My name is Julia White. I'm a senior studying business management with a concentration in HR. Without knowing the facts, I couldn't in good conscience agree to call him that next day.
Anybody else? Sharon? Okay, so if you called me and you said, would you call me? Go ahead, Nicole. There's an app?
There's an app for this.
Well, there wasn't back
This
then.
isn't the 1970s, Art.
Yeah, well, this is 2008, so it's not that long ago. There were cell phones and stuff like that. Well, this is the bottom line. I knew that if I went down that unethical road with this president of this business unit, it would not stop, right? It would not stop. Not only would I lose respect for myself, right, my integrity, I've sold out, what would he be thinking in the future, right? You don't want to ever put yourself in that position. So what I said is, I'm not doing it. And he said, I'll do it for you. Same thing. Your wife is out of town. And I said, thanks, but no thanks, I'll pass. Okay, but different environment, as I said, okay? It wasn't here. I just want you to understand that. It wasn't Sharon who called me, by the way. So the bottom line issue is that I think that it's really important that you sometimes look inside yourself. And there's company responsibility, I got that, but there's also things you have to be able to live with, right? Your parents raised you right, You don't want to put yourself in a position where at the beginning and the onset with coworkers, they think differently of you than you want them to see you as a professional. Does that make sense? So Monday comes around, he calls me up to his office and I'm thinking, I'm going to get fired, right? Although he doesn't have any grounds, right? I mean, what's he going to say? But I get up there and he calls me in and he apologizes. He says, Les, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked you. So it really obviously was the right thing to do. Had a great relationship with him after that. Okay. Any questions?
Did you go and
Yes, ma'am.
tell his wife?
No. No, I don't think that was a reporting requirement for me, so no, I minded my own business on that front. Yes, sir.
Tiara Holloway, junior business management major with concentration in HR. Just random question. I've heard before that companies will sometimes do those things sort of as a hazing to make sure you are ethical. Has that ever happened, or do you think that?
There was some other situation that's happened after that where his wife did find out, got divorced, so I don't think that was a test for me.
Well, I could address that, or you could, we could do it together. 1, 2, 3.
We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that. That's not a very good method of, because if the first thing you do
that's not, I don't think that's.
Well, we don't do that in the legal department or HR, but the IT organization does that. Right? So the IT organization, Information Technologies, they do that. Sometimes you'll get an email and it'll say, you know, your Marriott points, click on here. Or it'll say you have an upcoming trip and it got canceled, click on here. And it's going to be a fishing expedition. And it will have some examples in there, like it'll be Delta spelled with a A instead of an E or something like that at the end. Is that how you spell Delta? Delta. Right. And it'll say a little bit different. And then if you click on it, what we used to call it the big red hand, it'll say basically you better go back and take the training course because you shouldn't have clicked on that because it was a fishing expedition. How many of you actually go online sometimes and you see those things, we call them spam or something else that comes? Well, what can happen at companies like International Paper, you click on that and that gives them the methodology into your computer and it can really destroy the whole system. So that's where we do
I'll tell you,
it.
the first time we did that, in other words, the first time we tricked people.
Pissed me off. How about you, Nicole?
It didn't piss me off because I didn't click on it.
Oh, well, I clicked on it.
But the first time we did it, we had some people who were extremely upset. They said that this is not how international paper works. You know, we had one guy just went on a rant about how this is not how this company is. This company does not trick its employees. So we still do it, but we warn people ahead of time, you know, this is what we're going to do. And it's, you know, the thing is, we get pretty much the same results. We still have people clicking on the links. It's like, it's irresistible for them to click on these links. But, you know, we do let people know that this is one area where we will test you. And we try to be very gentle about it and not say that, you know, you're stupid, why did you do that? But we do let them know that they shouldn't do it in the future.
But that's really the only area we do
That's the
it.
only way, that's the only place where we can trick.
And you click on it one time, and then you have to retake this test again, right? Well, it only takes one time, because you're not going to retake that test again.
That's
So
right.
the next time it comes through, you're like, okay, don't click on that button. Well, great. Let's all thank Art and help him ease his way out of the airport. Okay, so cover for Art while he's leaving here. Sarah Norton, one of our labor and employment lawyers, has an ethical question for you.
Okay, so Art has called the helpline because his manager, Sharon, has been making suggestive remarks to him, perhaps. To Art, your employee. She's always, you know, asking him to go have a drink, or she's telling him how nice he looks. Or lately, she's actually been coming up behind him, like when he's at his desk, and she's been giving him that shoulder. Yeah, you gotta watch. So what does Art do? He called the helpline because he's, you know, this is making him uncomfortable. So now what happened was Sharon did, you know, we do the investigation because no matter what, we always are going to investigate. So Sharon finds out that Art called the helpline. And so now what has happened to Art is that she decided he should have to work the night shift. So no more days for Art. He's now working graveyard. So let's talk about whether we think what Art did was right. And I think you, James, tell me what you think about Art calling the helpline.
I think it was the right thing to do. I don't know Art's personal life, but I would say that if he feels uncomfortable in any way at that point, he needs to contact HR and he needs to reach out to the helpline.
Yes. Excellent. Good answer. Good answer. Wait. Oh, I do too. You need a gift. You do. A parting gift for calling the helpline. So IFE has a policy against harassment and that kind of behavior in the workplace. So that was right. Now, let's talk about his being moved to the night shift. What do you think? Have you been moved to the night shift?
Well, I think
What's your name? And your major?
I'm Melissa Munns. I'm an accounting major, and um, well, I mean, I guess that would be the best opportunity for him would be for the night shift. But then I also think that the harassment shouldn't happen in the first place, and he shouldn't have to deal with that in the day shift anyways.
Right. What do you think about retaliation? Does anybody have an, got a hand up over here? Got an anxious answerer? Okay, tell us your name. What do you think?
Hi, I'm Abby Wright. I'm a sophomore marketing major at Memphis. I think the big issue with moving his work shift to the night is that is a form of retaliation by the manager. For whatever reason, that may not work for him, and he shouldn't have to go out of his way to avoid a problem that was inflicted upon him without, like, him asking for it.
Excellent. Do I think I'm going to give you a prize? All right, that's it. Yeah. Next.
All right, I'm going to bother this side of the room. Since I'm in it.
Hey, who is that back there with the microphone in her hand?
This would be Delane Smith, another HR lawyer. So I'll talk, this is the HR row, right? The champions with the trophy or something? Okay, let's test it. All right. So, I've got to go for the soft sell one, the first one, because nobody's asked a question. So here's the deal. You're on your lunch break, and you're doing a little shopping on the internet, buying a few shoes. Right, Jessica? The boxes come to your office later, Amazon. Those are IP boxes. So you're doing a little internet shopping on your laptop while you're at lunch at work. Since you're on your own time, you're on your lunch time. Does the company have any right to know what you're up to? HR crew? Who wants it? Can you can't go.
Delane, are they using a company computer or are they
on
doing
your
it
laptop,
on their personal?
company laptop, in
Company
your cube
laptop?
or your office or your whatever area.
Can I send that down to Tyler then, if I can answer?
All right, Tyler. Do we have a prize if he gets it right?
Yes.
What if I get it wrong? Do I still get a prize?
It's a participation trophy.
Okay. Before I attempt to answer that question, I got to say I'm very proud of this team. We worked very hard while we were in Houston, and very, very proud of them. So, privacy issues within the company. We know that when we are working within a company, we're working on our company desk, our company drawers with our items in them, but the company has the right to, they can disclose this during the onboarding process. They can disclose that, while you're here at IP, this time is not yours and this property is not yours. So I'm going to say that if you're going to be using company internet at your company desk, ordering items to the company, and they need to see what you're ordering, I'm going to say that they could disclose that privacy policy. How am I doing? Am I going to get
My name is Katina Thurman. I'm a senior. My major is accounting. And if you're going to use the company computer to surf the net, understand that there might be a policy in place where they look at every page that you surf. They see what you're doing. They're recording it. So as a company, since you're using their property, I would say yes, they do have a right to see what you're doing.
So whose resource are you using if you're on your company laptop?
Company.
Who provided it to you? And who's paying for the internet access?
Company.
Right? And who's paying you to be at work that day? We get lunchtime? Nicole, do we have such a policy?
Let me see. Oh, yes. Acceptable use policy, which specifically states that you have no expectation of privacy when you are using a company asset. So let that be fair warning. There are many people who have not realized the extent of a company's ability to look into what you have been doing, looking at all of your your emails, looking at documents you've sent, looking at documents, looking at sites that you've visited on the internet. So
Okay,
if you-
Nicole, but are they going to do that? I mean, are they going to do that just to do it? I mean, don't you?
No, 'cause I'll
No.
tell you, it's the most tedious thing in the world. All of your
But will they just look at
your
it?
sites, they're boring, but we do it when we are in the middle of an investigation. That's the
Okay.
only, there's no other reason. People get thousands of emails. Your company's not going to be looking at it.
So-
But that doesn't mean that you're not careful. And
So-
remember whose asset it is and whose it isn't.
So for example, and Nicole said we typically wouldn't do this unless we were investigating. So for example, you're not getting your work done, and you may be doing it not only during lunchtime, but on your work time. So there might be a reason to say, well, this person was on Facebook, or you can't get on Facebook, you get the big red hand. But if you were on Amazon for 4 hours a day, Nicole
Unless
might be
it's
interested
Cyber
in
Monday.
that. Right. Cyber Monday, that's an exception. That's right. Or, believe it or not, occasionally there's someone who accesses an inappropriate site, and Nicole might hear about that. It might come in through the helpline or something, so that might be investigated. Someone may be,
And wait, and on that issue, even if it's your personal device, if you're looking at porn, and just to be quite honest about what it is, if you're looking at porn and you are on your personal device and other people can see it, that's also a problem, so don't do that.
not that that's ever happened here. That's one of those arts other company examples. Or if there's, there may be evidence you're doing some side business, conflict of interest. But the bottom line is you have no expectation of privacy if you're using company resources. Right?
So, Nicole, what would there be an issue if you were an employee in Brussels?
If you're in Brussels, unfortunately, we can't touch your computer without your permission. Well, actually, we can do some monitoring, but we are very, very limited. In Europe, they have a very different idea of privacy than we do. In Europe, privacy is a human right. So it's not just something that, it's a human right. So it's a right that can't be taken away. So that means they have laws and practices that are very different than in the United States. So we have people from the U.S. who think that, oh, yeah, we'll just use the computer, or we can't do that.
We have a question over here? Okay.
Would that apply to a U.S. expat in Europe, that same policy?
That's where it gets to be a little bit murky, but no, I think that we would look at the U.S. expats. Yes, we would.
What about things that people may have in their desk drawers?
Yeah, once again, there's the issue of no expectation of privacy, but
But we're not rifling through the drawers.
we're not rifling through your drawers, so it's actually more like your drawers are safer than your laptop.
Some people are not laughing, Nicole. So all those people that during the break wanted to come work at International Paper?
We will not be looking through your emails as long as you're behaving yourself.
So you guys say that you're in a wide range of countries. Do you ever come across the case where laws in that specific country make enforcing IP's code of conduct more difficult and challenging?
Oh, darn good question.
Yes, we do. For example, art rate is one of the issues. There's some places where companies operate through bribery, and we don't do that. And so, and we pay the cost for that. So yeah, the company's code of conduct would supersede anything that is illegal. So yeah, it does become a conflict in certain areas. Does anyone else?
Yeah, but I would say that, like as a supplier code of conduct or our code of conduct, we enforce that. I mean, I think you heard Tom talking earlier about practices may be, the culture may be different, but the code is the same no matter where you are. So we enforce that code no matter where. And as he was saying earlier, it may end up costing us overall, but it's still the right thing
So I'll speak on a broad sense of strategy. When we look at different countries where we may want to look at acquisitions, that is one of the first things that we look at. We look at the country, we look at the business, and then we say, can we do business in that country through the way we want to do business in the United States? So I won't mention any specific countries because I did that one year and the person came up to me and was insulted. But there are certain countries that we do not feel comfortable operating in at this time until we feel like the government is supportive of an ethical culture.
And there are other countries that we do go into, and we go into it with our eyes open and with the proper training and policies in place so that we can operate ethically in those countries.
And before even we actually would buy the company, we may go in, we do due diligence. If we see that there's going to be issues even before we start operating, we will go in, we will do a lot of training, we may change the processes. Purchasing, as you mentioned, is usually a big deal. Some of the countries that we've gone in, we've had to really change the culture of the purchasing. Some countries we've gone in, we've had to really change out the old management and put in new management that understands the IP way. So it's a process, but it's very important for companies like International Paper to, if we're going to go into these countries, we do it the right way, because going into a small country that's going to cause us issues, even if it's a very small investment, it could really take down the company if it becomes a major scandal. So we're very careful about that.
Great, thank you, Sharon. We have another labor and employment lawyer to provide.
How many do we have? My God.
We are close to being done here. Ed Rouse.
Hi, guys.
Who's
I'm
going to
Ed
watch
Rouse.
the NCAAs tonight? Okay, go ahead, Ed.
I'm going to circle back to something Dean talked about at the start, which is safety. So it's not something we've done a whole lot of talking about here, but we'll focus on it a little bit. So imagine I'm a machine operator for the company. I'm an experienced machine operator, so I know what I'm doing. I'm in this machine, and the machine has certain guards built on it to make sure I don't put my hand in the machine and get my fingers chopped off. But because I'm so damn good at this machine, I know I can work faster than other people to make a good impression and get a promotion. So I decide that if I take that guard off, I can work faster. I get more product done. I can really get ahead of the game. Impress the heck out of my bosses who are always worried about making money. Right? What do you think about that? Is that something I can do, something I shouldn't do? Why?
I'm Asma. I'm in International IMBA program in Faculty College of Business and Economics, and this is my second semester. In this situation, I think the person should not remove the guard because accidents do not happen every day. It happens certain time. He may be distressed. He may be happen something in his family life, in personal life that may distract his concentration, and accident can happen. And that time he will not even get the safety or security because he removed the guard. So it's his for his benefit he should keep that guard.
Very nice.
Great answer. Yeah, great answer. Think about this too, guys. There are other reasons why we would be concerned about this, not just that we don't want to let somebody be distracted and hurt himself. There could be other reasons.
Hi, Caitlin McKay, Senior International Business Major with a concentration in marketing. At that time, you really wouldn't have the focus of the company in your mind. You'd have just your selfish reasons on why you want to take the guard off. And based on the code of conduct of the company, that's just unethical for you to take the guard off just so you can better yourself and get ahead. And although you might be really good, the accidents do happen, and that would cost not only you, but the company in general, and I just don't think that's right at all.
Thanks.
Got one back here.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Nichols, I'm a BIT major. One reason he shouldn't take it off is because people around him may be like, if he can do it, I can do it. But you're not at the same skill level as him. So monkey see, monkey do. It does play a part in the workplace, and you can prevent a lot just following the rules.
company isn't here. Thank you. Any other reason?
Somebody in the front row.
Okay,
We
no.
don't have an extra prize, though. So. I just ran out of
Round of prizes, you can still talk to them.
My name is Brandon Henderson. I'm a supply chain major, and that'll definitely put the company in liability with OSHA. So I definitely would say that's not a good thing to do because that'll be a lawsuit. Austin's not.
You made a great point. I was going to ask, is there any kind of legal reason, and you must be getting ready to go to law school.
No.
OSHA is out there, and OSHA can punish a company for violations, even if the company didn't know about something. If they let an employee do something and they weren't on their game and watching to see if bad things were happening, we can be on the hook for that. So that's another great reason to be concerned about it.
And then as well, even from a productivity standpoint, you're talking about machinery that's worth probably millions of dollars. You know, it's important that that is maintained, and that's part of the value of that machinery. But in addition to that, if his productivity is so great and he's able to, and he is experienced, then using the procedures that have been laid out to be most effective and safe as well will be the way that he'd be able to increase his productivity as well and be able to increase being able to do better.
I would like to say that with a safety program, you've identified a lot of the risks or all of the risks that are incorporated with working within a company in each area. So you have policies in place that people have to sign or read off on, that they've been trained and understand that this is a safety issue. So he should have already acknowledged that and not taken the guard off at all. It was in violation of a policy when he did that.
Hi, Quincy Ride, double major, finance and accounting. Being that I used to be a machine operator, I completely understand why he basically took off the guard. Because your story describes me completely, seeing that I took off the guard. I know that completely affects how people will see me, but when you're working in an environment where you are on production per an hour, and if you can't meet that production, we're talking about liabilities of your housing or food or stuff like that. And although it is unethical, he's breaking this sense of safety, and it puts the company in jeopardy. I guess you gotta weigh your opportunity versus companies. That makes sense.
Yes, thank you. Wow. I think what you want to bear in mind about this, the way he looks at it, is not just the legal aspect, not just that is it right, but mostly we want people to go home every day the way they came into work, totally healthy. We don't want people to be going home missing a hand, missing fingers, going home to their wife, their husband, their other significant others, their children, their friends, and being maimed in some way. That's just not the right thing to do. And we're really all about the right things to do.
So this gets to the end of our program. We'll have a little bit of time to do some more networking afterwards, but there are a number of people I need to thank here because they did such a good job in pulling this together. Cecilia Lewis, who's in the back, Kathy Coleman, and Sean, whose last name I don't know. Morrison. So thank you for making this all work. That video. It came up right on slide 5. Thank you very much. Let me thank the labor and employment lawyers. You guys did a great job with all the questions and getting everybody talking, so thank you all very much. And then lastly, but most importantly, thank you all to the panelists. You guys did a fabulous job. I'm sure everybody found it really interesting and engaging. We look forward to any more questions that you might have today. And I just have one last thing to tell you that Cecilia will kill me if I don't. Make sure you take off your badges and give them back to security, or put them on the sign-in table. And they'll be out there to collect them. And I'd like to turn it over to Kathy to say a few closing words. Thank you all very much for coming.
I'll
want to thank Dion for being a great MC. Sharon reminded me of something or challenged me about something, and I have a trivia prize. It will be given to the person who gets this correct. There's a person in this room that I share a last name with who knows who that is and what relationship he is to me. All right, Cassandra.
It is your husband. You talk about him regularly in class.
Yes. We have enjoyed being an IP spouse for over 24 years, and IP has been a great corporate home for us and our family, and we've had a great leader in Sharon in terms of that. So, couple things. You have just had an ethics lab, okay? And you need to recognize how special it is for you to have had this opportunity at this Fortune 100 company. It is significant. Few students get this. Every great city has a great university, and we are the University of Memphis in Memphis, and we are a great university. We are only great because of great corporate partners and great relationships. And IP has done so many things in the city of Memphis and so many things for our university. Let's give them a round of applause.